At dinner, my stepson said in front of everyone, "You stinking imposter! Get out, you pathetic wallet!" My wife smiled. I said nothing. They didn't know the house was in my name. That night, I canceled my stepson's wedding, put the house up for sale, and left town. Before I went, I wrote to their biological father, "Take it. It's a gift." 2 hours later, the phone rang. They said it was just dinner. Pot roast, Monica's sister bringing that boxed Merlot she calls her fancy, me on the grill to sear zucchini because Kyle's fiancé is trying vegetables this month. I showered after fixing the upstairs toilet that's been ghost flushing since March, pulled on a clean chambray shirt, and came downstairs to find my own dining room rearranged like a rental. Kyle had taken the head seat. Not the chair I've warmed 4 years straight, not the one that lines up with the thermostat and the view of the live oak. I refused to let the HOA butcher. No, the head seat. He slid into it like he'd always been there, like his name was on the mortgage and the flood insurance and the property tax portal that still thinks our lot is worth less than the county's appetite. Monica didn't flinch. She actually set a folded napkin on his plate like a little crown. "Tom, can you grab extra forks?" she called without turning. Not please, not honey. Just the voice you use for a handyman you overtip at Christmas. I got the forks. South Austin in July is a hot mouth breathing on your neck, even after sunset. The ceiling fan in the dining room ticks on the low speed I set to keep our summer bill under $400. The table is one I built myself out of pecan slabs a neighbor was going to trash. It has a scar that looks like a river where I learned what a belt sander doesn't forgive. Everyone loves that story. They tell it like it's cute. They never ask what a slab costs when you pay with overtime. They came in waves. Monica's sister and her husband with the laugh that knocks pictures crooked. Kyle's buddies from work, one of them carrying a Bluetooth speaker like a newborn. Monica's mother with a bakery box she forgot to refrigerate. 10, then 12, then 14. I kept counting chairs like a man counts exits. No one asked if we had enough ice. No one asked if I was hungry. Kyle tapped his glass with the face of a fork. "Before we eat." I was still standing behind the empty chair at the far end, the one Monica had slid to the corner, away from the window unit that rattles when it's humid, where the AC doesn't quite reach. A guest chair. Kyle grinned down the length of the table like he owned the whole river. The Bluetooth speaker clicked, and someone's playlist shifted into a song about forever. Monica, my wife, smiled with her lips shut and her eyes big, the way she does when she knows Kyle's about to do something memorable. "To family," he said, lifting his glass. "To the people who are real." Laughter warmed the room. Phones went up. Even the Merlot got interested. Then he turned his head, slow, like a camera panning to a villain. He found me at the corner. He didn't blink. "To the rest," he added, "the temporary staff." Another laugh, looser, honest now. I didn't move, didn't smile. The thermostat clicked. Somewhere in the house, the guest bathroom fan that's been dying for 6 months hummed like a fly trapped in glass. He set the glass down, leaned his forearms on the table I paid for with 3 extra HVS callouts last winter, and said, clear as the bell at St. Mary's down the block, "You're a stinking imposter. Get out of here, you pathetic wallet." He said it to me. Not a joke, not a nudge. A verdict. The room did what rooms do when the loudest person gives permission. Laughter. Relief. Heads tilted back. Monica's mother made that little O sound she makes when the winners score. Monica herself, my Monica, smiled. Not a big smile, enough to tell me what team she was on. I looked at the table. at the scratch near Kyle's plate from when I caught the falling casserole dish last Thanksgiving and burned my palm instead of the oak. At the place cards Monica had handwritten, "Everyone got one but me." At Kyle's hand, already creeping to the bread, the bakery rolls I stopped on South Lamar to pick up because Monica texted me at 4:17 p.m. that she forgot carbs. Someone clapped. Someone said, "Savage." Someone said, "Finally, bro." A phone camera framed me in the corner like a crash test dummy that refused to die on schedule. I took the empty corner seat. I placed the spare forks by the napkins. "Salt?" I asked no one in particular. They passed it without looking. The Bluetooth speaker thumped a little harder. Kyle started on a speech about our journey, about home base, about a new chapter for this house, like the deed had already updated, and my signature had faded like old ink. He talked about a downtown loft for the reception, about the DJ who gets our vibe, about the rooftop photo op with the skyline behind them. He didn't say how any of it was being paid for. He didn't have to. The pathetic wallet would, obviously. Monica's hand brushed my shoulder as she reached for the salad. Not a touch. A traffic maneuver. "Tom, can you top up the water?" she murmured, eyes on the pitcher, not on me. I poured. The guests were in. That's the word that kept knocking in my skull as the room grew warmer and the jokes got meaner in the casual way jokes do when they've been rehearsed in private. In. They were in the group text with the highlights, in the photos, in the toasts, in the seating chart. I was in the way. "Hey, wallet," one of Kyle's friends said to the Bluetooth speaker when the music cut out, smacking the top like it owed him rent. The table roared. Maybe he meant the device. Maybe not. Didn't matter. At some point, the food got cold. At some point, Monica announced the engagement, official, with a little squeal and a finger flash, the ring sparkling under the crooked pendant light I've been meaning to rehang level. At some point, my name became a pronoun they didn't need. I watched the whole thing like I was doing an inspection on a house no one knew was condemned. Structure, rotten. Load-bearing walls, missing. Title, clouded. Occupants, celebrating in the living room while the foundation cracked under their chairs. "Speech, speech," someone yelled, and Kyle stood again, boss of my table. He looked past me, through me, out the back slider to the yard, where the St. Augustine I resodded in April glowed a thirsty green under the porch light I wired myself. He lifted his glass for the finale. "To the future," he said, "to a real family, to doing it right this time." They drank. I didn't. There's a line where a man either begs or he leaves. It's quieter than people think. It's not drawn with a shout. It's drawn with a breath, the kind that goes in one way and comes out another, because something in you changes shape. You don't make a speech. You don't throw a plate. You set a glass down and feel, with the clarity of a level-finding plum, the exact distance between your dignity and this room. I reached for my phone, not to film, not to text, just to feel the weight of it, the way you tap your pocket before you step into rain. Battery at 63%. Enough to do what had to be done later. Kyle's fiancée tried to catch my eye then, some flicker of decency or doubt. I don't know. She was young and smart enough to look worried when a man sits that still. Monica was not worried. She was radiant. She had her group back, her faction, her old rhythm. Her boy at the head, her mother laughing beside her, the whole circle snug and humming. No more compromises. No more inconvenient spouse tugging at the edge of the script. "Tom?" Monica said, noticing at last that I hadn't eaten. "You okay?" I looked up at her. I thought of the auto drafts that leave our joint account on the 1st and the 15th. family plan, family cloud, family streaming, family gym where no one goes but me. I thought of the binder in my office labeled House. Warranties tucked behind plastic sheets. The roof estimate I beat down by $8,000 by doing half the demo myself. The Austin Energy rebates I filed. The flood zone letter I negotiated so we could afford the remodel Kyle wants to swing a sledge at. The HELOC I qualified for. The escrow I nursed. The quiet math of a man nobody thanks. Fine, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like a door closing gently. Someone turned the music up. Someone said, "Let's cut the cake." They started singing. Faces turned toward themselves in their phone screens. I stood. I carried the pitcher to the sink. I rinsed it out, let the water run until it went cold. Habit. And shut it off with the small twist Monica always forgets. I wiped my hands on a towel I'd bought in a pack of 6 because Monica likes the ones that look good, but don't absorb anything. Then I walked back to the corner and watched my stepson raise his glass again, basking. He looked right at me when he drank. He wanted me to flinch. He wanted a scene. He wanted proof I was the problem so he could be the solution. I gave him nothing. I sat down, folded my hands, and drew a line inside myself he couldn't see. A clean, silent line in South Austin, under a roof I paid for, in a room full of people who just told me I don't belong in my own home. They didn't know it yet, but this was their last meal here. The Bluetooth warbled. Someone hollered for shots. Monica's sister knocked her glass against the table and left a crescent of red on the pecan. I watched it bead and flatten, a little sunset bleeding in place, and thought about stains, how they set, how you sand them out, how sometimes you don't. I thought about the precise weight of keys in a palm. I thought about locks. Kyle leaned back, laced his fingers over his stomach, and announced a registry like a decree. Flatware, bar cart, espresso machine he'll never descale, a honeymoon experience fund. He said, "Our community will show up." Eyes slid to me and back, a shared joke in the seams. I pictured the inbox full of invoices with my name at the bottom, the polite "Dear Toms" from vendors who learn a man's middle initial when his card clears. The laughter ran long. The air got denser. The live oak out back stirred once in a thin breeze and settled, the way old trees do when they've seen storms come and go. I finished my water, set the glass down, listened to the house. It told me the truth in the small noises. The AC pushing tired, the refrigerator shuddering into a cycle I'd need to defrost, the vent hood with a rattle I could fix if I still felt like fixing anything here. It told me what I already knew. The structure would hold long enough for me to make an exit on my own terms. "Tom," Monica tried again, careful now. "Say something." I shook my head once. Not no. Just done. A man doesn't announce a boundary. He lives it. I didn't sleep. Didn't pace either. I just stood in the upstairs hall after they left, the house finally quiet, my hand on the banister I'd refinished with 3 coats of satin poly, and I listened to the walls breathe. You learn a house like you learn a body, where it aches, what settles, what pain it hides out of politeness. Past midnight, the fridge purred into a defrost cycle. The attic fan hiccuped once, and the water heater ticked as it cooled. Normal sounds. Calming, if the house still belonged to me the way I thought it did 10 hours earlier. I changed the burned-out bulb in the guest bath because I couldn't stand leaving a job half done. Then I turned off lights in a sequence my muscle memory knew. Kitchen can lights, living room lamp, porch sconce, like closing a shop for the last time. Downstairs, the pecan table looked hungover, smears of icing, a fork balanced crooked on a plate, a ring of dried Merlot like a compass marking false north. I left it. Not out of spite, out of clarity. The line was already drawn. The mess was evidence. In the office, I keep a fireproof lockbox with papers that make adult life either possible or miserable, depending on how close you keep them. I set it on the desk blotter, entered the little code Monica forgets and I never do, and lifted the lid. Deeds. Car titles. The binder with the wedding contracts inside plastic sleeves, each page tabbed with blue flags. Loft. Caterer. DJ. Photographer. Rentals. Efficient. Credits posted. Balances due. Monica had flipped through them once in May and said, "You're a lifesaver," then set the binder on top of the printer like it would keep printing out miracles on command. I slid the binder toward me and opened my laptop. Battery, 41%. Charger coiled where I left it, neat as fishing line. I plugged in. The screen was a dull ocean. My email had 6 unread. A venue update about downtown parking, an upbeat note from the DJ about must-play lists, a gentle reminder from the photographer that sunrise shoots on the pedestrian bridge book up fast. I read them all. I read them like a man reading letters from a life he was done writing. The first cancellation took me 3 attempts to phrase. Not because I didn't know what I wanted, because I wanted no drama in the paper trail. The city respects clean emails. Hello, this is Tom. Please cancel our reservation for the September 14th event under Monica S. and Kyle R. per contract. I understand the deposit is non-refundable. I accept. Please confirm in writing. Thank you. I sent it. Copied the PDF of the contract into a new folder named Wedding. Cancelled. Put the confirmation in there when it came in 5 minutes later, a polite, "We're sorry to lose you," with a smiley face in the signature, like someone trying to soften a breakup with a sticker. Caterer next. She had done our Christmas Eve last year when I thought we might be a family after all. I typed slower for her. "We're unable to proceed." I did not say why. She replied with a paragraph about availability and heartbreak, and asked if this was a temporary pause or permanent. I wrote permanent and felt nothing and everything at once. The DJ's message dinged before I'd drafted the 3rd email. He'd seen the venue's notice on his portal, Vendors Talk, and wanted to keep us on the calendar just in case. I told him no. He asked if he could call. I wrote, "Email preferred." I filed his confirmation under the same graveyard folder and shut off desktop notifications. The photographer sent back a short, kind line that sounded like a human being. I stared at it for a while, then moved it too. I pulled the thick manila envelope from the lockbox marked House. Sale. You don't keep a thing like that unless you've imagined using it. I'd imagined it during arguments that ended with slammed cabinets and Monica's, "You're not my father," thrown at me like I ever tried to be. I'd imagined it soberly, without revenge, the way you think about a spare tire when you hear a nail click under the rubber. Inside were the names of 3 realtors I'd interviewed last winter when the taxes jumped, and Kyle announced he'd be renovating the garage into a studio on my dime. I'd picked one then, a woman named Lydia who didn't upsell Hope, and kept her card. At 2:24 a.m., I texted Lydia, "Ready to list 3-2 on South Austin, Mid-Century Ranch, good roof, new HVAC, clean lines, open Saturday. Can you bring paperwork before noon?" I expected morning. She sent 3 dots. Then, "I can be there at 7:30 a.m. with comps." I replied, "Bring as-is addendum. Quick close preferred." The phone felt heavier after that. Another line crossed. I breathed and let the quiet return. I scrolled to a contact I keep in my favorites out of obligation. Mark, the biological father. He lives in Pflugerville with a pit bull and a second chance he treats like a couch. Mark texts me on Father's Day every year, like he's outsourcing guilt through Hallmark. We've traded kids on their birthday logistics and ER copays, and one bail I paid because Monica said, "Please, he's still Kyle's father." A man learns resentment has a taste. You can swallow it if you name it. I never named Mark much of anything. I typed, "Take them. It's a gift." I didn't add, "They are adult children when it suits them and helpless when the rent is due." I didn't add, "Your son called me a wallet to my face in my house." I didn't add, "Monica smiled." He wrote back immediately, which told me he was either sober, lonely, or both. Is this a joke? No. Take who? Your son? Your former wife? Their things. Pick up this weekend. He called then. I let it ring out. He called again. I let it ring. He texted, "You serious?" I answered, "Yes." He wrote, "I can be there Saturday." I said, "Text before you arrive." He sent a thumbs up. The smallness of it almost made me laugh. I opened our cell provider app. The family plan had 5 lines: mine, Monica's, Kyle's, the tablet Monica uses for recipes she never follows, and the doorbell I installed that no one appreciates until packages go missing. I navigated to Manage Lines. A blue toggle can carry more weight than an argument. I turned off Kyle's line. Confirmed. Then Monica's. Confirmed. I left the doorbell for now because I still like knowing who is at my door, even if I don't plan to answer. Insurance next. Auto drafts look like kindness until you understand they're shackles with good UX. I logged into the bundle, auto, home, umbrella, and removed Monica's car from the policy. It took 8 clicks and a chat box where a representative named Lauren asked if I wanted to retain multi-vehicle discounts. I wrote, "No." I removed Kyle as a listed driver. Lauren typed a paragraph about risk and eligibility. I confirmed anyway. For the health insurance, I emailed HR at the construction firm, where I oversee 2 crews and a warehouse no one else has patience for. Please remove Monica and Kyle from my coverage, effective immediate. Divorce proceedings pending. Send Cobra notice to their separate emails. I don't know if we'll actually divorce. I knew I needed a sentence that unlocked an action. HR loves phrases. Give them one, and they move. I opened the bank app. The auto pays. Kyle's gym. Unchecked. Kyle's streaming services. Unchecked. Kyle's guitar lesson subscription for lessons he never attends. Unchecked. Monica's boutique card. Unchecked. The combined utility autopay. Left checked because I still live here for a few more days, and I won't be the man who lets the lights die on principle. I wrote myself a note. Cancel water softener monthly when vacant. It wasn't anger. It was inventory. It was a man counting screws before disassembling a swing set. I shut down the family cloud storage, photos, documents, the nostalgia dump. A notification popped. Monica may lose access to shared albums. I typed, "Okay," and pressed the button. The cloud thinned like fog. At 3:41 a.m., the house shifted on its piers. Old wood sings like that when the night cool finally sneaks in. I made coffee even though my hands were steady without it. The drip machine did its small reign. I drank in the dark kitchen and watched the slider's reflection. A man in a t-shirt with a tired map of his life in his face. Good. Let it show. I've earned those lines. At 4:12 a.m., the calls started. Unknown number first, likely the venue, night manager scanning cancellations like storm warnings. I silenced it. Then Monica, then her sister, then the group thread dinging. "What's going on?" With varying counts of exclamation points like bids at an auction. I put the phone face down. It buzzed across the countertop, a small animal trying to escape. I let it go to the edge and caught it because I still catch things before they shatter. I texted Lydia to confirm. 7:30 is good. She wrote, "Bring any repairs list." I answered, "I'll sell as is." She sent a thumbs up and a micro list of staging suggestions. I wrote, "No staging. Price to move." She replied with a new number I liked more than the last time we spoke. The market had leaned in our favor. Funny. Life never does until you stop asking. By 5 the east sky had the color of a bruise healing. I walked the house with a legal pad and wrote what I knew a buyer's inspector would circle. GFI in kitchen trips under blender load, hairline crack in garage slab from the summer's soil tantrum, back fence bowing because the neighbor's fig tree got heavy with sugar. I wrote dryer vent clean and replace 2 smoke detector batteries. Old habits. I set the pad on the counter and left it there for Lydia because transparency sells faster than throw pillows. When the phone rang at 5:26 and showed Monica, I answered. Silence first, then breath, then the voice she uses when she wants something and doesn't want to admit it. "What did you do?" "Cleaned up." "What does that mean, Tom?" Tight, controlled, a customer on hold voice. She'd been rehearsing. "It means I canceled what I paid for." "You paid because you wanted to. No one forced you." The old dodge, the museum exhibit she takes me to whenever gratitude feels too heavy. I paid because it was the only way it would happen without me spending every weekend refereeing a GoFundMe. "You're being cruel." "No," I said, and my voice didn't rise. "I'm being done." "You turned off Kyle's phone." She made it a verdict. The phone's little green light blinked like a heartbeat. "Yes. He has interviews next week. He can give them your number." She tried the old weapons. Tears first, then disbelief, then anger that fizzled because I didn't feed it. "You're putting me in a terrible position," she said finally. Honest at last. "You've been putting me in one for years." There was a small clatter on her end. Maybe a spoon dropped in the sink. Then the shift I knew was coming. "We can talk about this." "We are." "I mean really talk." "I did, last night. You laughed." "That was a joke. Kyle was joking." "I heard him." Silence. Then, smaller. "What are you doing now?" "Waiting on Lydia." "Who is?" "The realtor." "You can't be serious." "I am." "You would sell our house out from under me?" "It's not under you," I said. "It's over me." That landed. I heard it in the way she had no reply, in the way the air on her side went thin. "What about the wedding?" "Have it." I sipped coffee that had gone cold. "Have it somewhere you belong." "Where is that, Tom?" Bitter now. "With your family," I said. "Mark is picking you up Saturday." I could hear the blood rush into her face through the line. "You called Mark?" "I texted him. He's bringing a truck." "You humiliated me." The accusation cracked. "You, of all people." "I didn't stand up at a table and call you a leech," I said. "I didn't call anyone anything. I just stopped paying for people who don't respect me." "You're punishing Kyle because he's young." "I'm reminding Kyle he's not young enough to treat me like an ATM with a pulse." Click. She hung up before she could tell me I was heartless. That word doesn't stick to men who remember to defrost the freezer and rotate the tires on cars they don't drive. By 6:50, I had a go bag on the bed. Jeans, work shirts, socks, boots, the good flashlight, my passport, the title to the F-150, the ring Monica once said we'd upgrade when the time was right. I left the ring. I took the charger bundle and the hand crank radio because hurricanes don't ask for permission any more than grown children do. At 7:28, Lydia's Prius pulled up, neat and unbothered. She shook my hand, took my comps, walked the house, scribbled notes. We'll price it right, she said. If we go live by noon, we'll have traffic by the weekend. Go live by 9, I said. She looked up, met my eyes, read what was written there, and nodded. No pep, just competence. I liked her again. We signed on the kitchen island. Electronic docs pinged my email. I initialed boxes that asked if anyone had died in the house. No. If any liens existed. No. If any disputes with neighbors were ongoing. That fence, but we're all civilized about it. Lydia snapped wide shots with her phone, instructed me to push the dining table back to center and make the bed. I left the Merlot ring on the wood. It told a truer story than a runner would. When are you out? She asked. By nightfall. Where to? Professional curiosity. The coast, I said. Airstream down near the dunes. She smiled the smallest smile, something like respect. Call me if you need a cleaner. And Tom? Yeah. You're doing the right thing. I'm doing a thing, I said. Right belongs to people who clapped last night. When she left, I walked the house one last time, like a man saying goodbye to a dog he raised. I laid my palm on the bedroom door frames I'd planned straight, turned the closet lights off that I taught to behave with motion sensors, checked the shutoff to the outside spigot that leaks if you don't ask nicely. I wrote a note and taped it inside the pantry for the next owner. The AC likes its filter early. The live oak throws pollen you can't negotiate with. The neighbors are loud but kind. The floor dips near the fridge because old houses sag toward the things they love. I signed it with my first name only. At 8:22 a.m., I slid my keys onto the counter. House, shed, gate. Kept the truck key. Pocketed the mailbox key because letters still come even when life stops. I locked the front door, walked down the path I laid out of salvaged brick, and got in the F-150. The phone buzzed again. Kyle, then Monica, then Mark with, "Still Saturday?" I wrote back, "Still Saturday." On the way out of South Austin, I stopped at the AT&T store on Ben White and returned the doorbell plan. The clerk asked if I wanted to upgrade. I said, "I'm done with upgrades." She laughed, then saw my face, and just did the paperwork. The road south unspooled under the tires like something honest. Between here and the Gulf, there's a stretch where billboards thin and radio stations turn to salt and preachers. I put the window down. The air was already hot. Somewhere behind me, phones were pinging off dead towers, off expectations that had lost their power. That wasn't my weather anymore. I pointed the truck toward water, toward an airstream I'd paid a deposit on 2 years ago when a storm took our fence, and I thought, I might need a place one day. The place has a view of dunes that change shape when the wind decides, not when a child does. I didn't check my phone for the next 30 miles. Boundaries need silence to set. By morning, the machine started to scream. It wasn't human at first. It was automated. The venue's portal vomiting status-changed emails into my inbox, calendar invites retracting one by one like little flags yanked off a lawn. The loft downtown flipped from confirmed to frozen for non-payment, which is a polite way to say, the wallet went dark. The caterer replied with a professional condolence and an itemized voiding of services. The DJ sent a last-ditch, "We can work something out," with a winky face, which is what bills use when they try to date you. I archived the thread. The calls went from rings to sirens. Monica's name pulsed at the top of my screen, then Kyle's, then Mom, because he never changed her contact after freshman year. I let them fill the log like tide lines. If a man answers in that state, he writes checks with his mouth that his spine will have to cash. I made eggs in a cast-iron skillet inside the airstream, watched gulls drift like torn receipts over the dunes, and listen to the surf do what it does without approval. The pan hissed. Coffee bloomed. The phone jittered across the laminate table like it had a flea. I set it in the stainless sink so it could dance there without finding the floor. At 8:03 a.m., the family thread started bleeding screenshots. Monica. What is happening? Her sister. Venue says blocked. Did someone forget a payment? Kyle. Tom, what did you do? The photographer chimed in with a well-meaning paragraph about availability and alternatives. The group ignored her so hard I could feel the cold on my end of the state. A new number texted at 8:11. Hi, Tom. I'm Chelsea from Loft 7. Are you able to call? I wrote, email only. She sent a clean termination notice faster than most people can brew tea. Professionals know when the oxygen's gone. At 8:19, Kyle broke the family chat tone barrier. You absolute clown. You think you can control us? People get brave with punctuation when they feel the floor tilt. He followed with, I'm moving our lines back to my plan. 2 minutes later, a reply from the carrier bot. We were unable to complete your request. He posted the bot in the chat like it proved something. It did. Just not what he thought. Mark, the bio dad, cut through with surgical bluntness. I'll pick up their stuff by the weekend. No emojis, no apology tour. I could respect a man who at least used declarative sentences. Monica followed with, we are not leaving our home. And then, 3 dots, a vanish, another 3 dots. She was trying out scripts, looking for one that made me pay and disappear at the same time. Lydia, the realtor, texted a link at 9:02. We're live. The listing looked honest. Pecan floors, new HVAC, light-filled kitchen, modest yard with an old oak that won't be told what to do. No chef's kitchen, no spa bath. We priced it where the smart money would be first. She added, 2 showings already booked for this afternoon. The machine doesn't only collapse, sometimes it sells. By 10, the calls had slowed, replaced by longer texts that felt like closing arguments. Monica sent, you are destroying years of work. I reread the sentence 3 times, wondering which years she meant. The ones where I refinanced to get us out from under 23% credit cards? The ones where I filed the tuition grant forms she couldn't look at without shaking? The ones where I ate every insult like a late fee and paid in full? I wrote back a single sentence. You smiled when he called me a wallet. She responded with a picture from the engagement. Glasses raised, people I fed and ferried and insured glowing in my dining room. In the corner of the frame, I sat off to the side like a driver waiting for the engine light to shut up. I smiled because he was nervous, she wrote. Don't twist it. I didn't answer. I don't argue with photographs. The vendors began to confirm my absence the way weather confirms a front. The rental company processed the cancellation with the relief of people who will rent those chairs twice on the same date now. The efficient, a guy Kyle found through a podcast, sent a DM that said, totally get it. Hit me up if y'all want a pop-up ceremony in the park. I filed him under maybe someday never. Around noon, the Airstream's little AC coughed like a bird. I cleaned the filter, ate a sandwich the width of my palm, and walked the narrow deck toward the dune. Salt tries to reclaim everything at the coast. Screws bloom rust. Canvas turns to paper. Men become simple or leave. I stood in the sun and allowed the shape of the next hour to find me. Do nothing heroic. Answer nothing that demanded a stage. Continue the subtractions until the sums told the truth. Phones don't like behavior that makes money sad. When Monica tried to use the gym app at 12:37, it sent, your membership is inactive. She posted the screen to the family thread with, "This is abuse," which Kyle screenshotted and sent to me with, "Fix it." I muted the thread for 8 hours and felt my blood pressure drop like the first good rain after August. By early afternoon, Lydia had 4 offers asking for minor concessions and 1 cash offer from a couple with a dog that sheds and a toddler that will Cheerios the place into new life. "They can waive repairs if you include the washer/dryer and leave the grill," she wrote. "Close in 7 days." I stared at the number, ran my internal math, and felt a click inside. The good kind. The one that doesn't break your jaw. "Accept cash," I texted. "Washer just dryer stay. Grill goes in the bed of my truck." At 3:14 p.m., Monica shifted strategies and went to logistics. "Where is Kyle's birth certificate?" she wrote, like she didn't know I'd been the one to retrieve it from her mother's cedar chest and laminate copies when he needed a passport for a spring break he never thanked anyone for. I replied, "In the safe. Mark can retrieve on Saturday." She wrote, "Do not let that man in my house." I didn't reply. The house had already answered for me. The first voicemail I listened to all day came from the photographer. Her voice was clean, respectful. "Tom, I'm sorry this is messy. If you or Monica need images from the engagement night for any reason, I'll release what I have at no charge. People say cruel things when they're excited. Take care." It's strange how kindness from a stranger shaves a corner off a hard day. I saved her message and moved on. By evening, the group thread had stopped yelling and started negotiating with the universe. Kyle posted a poll. Backyard under lights versus Uncle Ray's shop with tarps. Monica's sister wrote, "Roundville has a community center if we know someone on the board." And someone did, because within an hour, Kyle had bannered the thread with a blurry photo of a backyard with a decent maple and a plastic folding table shaped like a promise. "We can make this cute," someone wrote. "DIY is so in." It is when the DI stands for Don't Involve Tom. I drove to the small grocery near the park to buy ice, bread, and fuel for the camper stove. At checkout, a kid in a name tag handed me the receipt and said, "You from Austin? I can hear it." I said, "Not anymore," and surprised myself with the clean edge in my tone. Out in the lot, I watched a family load a trunk, Dad lifting, Mom laughing, a boy trying to help and almost dropping the watermelon before a hand steadied it. There's a world where people learn their weight early and carry it with grace. This week was not that world for them. That night, wind pushed the Airstream's skin like a palm testing a fence. I lay on the narrow bed and scrolled the new listing comments like weather. "Love the wood," someone wrote. "Is the neighborhood noisy?" another asked. A neighbor I trust replied, "On Fridays, yes, but you'll live," which is exactly how an honest place sells. At 10:06 p.m., a text from Mark. "Truck's booked. I'll be there Saturday at 9. I sent him the lockbox code and Lydia's card in case timing crossed. He wrote, "I'll be respectful." I said, "Good." Respect is like insurance, mostly paper until a fire. Day 2, offers firmed up, inspections scheduled with an efficiency that would embarrass a hospital. Day 3, Monica found a tone that sounded like a person I used to know. "I'm scared," she wrote. No garnish. I never learned any of this. This covered checking accounts, insurance cards, ACH forms, the kind of paperwork nobody claps for. I typed, "There's a credit union on South Lamar with a woman named Denise who won't talk down to you. Take your driver's license, a piece of mail with your name, and $25. Open checking and savings. Ask for a secured card. Pay it every month." It took me 60 seconds to write what took me 20 years to acquire. She replied, Thank you. That was the first please-adjacent word in months. I put the phone face down again and let the surf have its say. A week is a long time when your life is falling and short when it's selling. The house went under contract in 5 days. The title company sent wiring instructions. I confirmed them by phone like an adult who has seen scams and lived to warn younger men. Lydia texted a thumbs up and a champagne bottle I didn't begrudge her. She earned celebratory pixels. Monica moved into a condo near her sister's place with floors that don't remember our fights. Kyle stored his boxes in Mark's garage, which smells like motor oil and hope. The gym wouldn't let him back without a card on file. He posted a picture of push-ups in the driveway with the caption, "Back to basics," and 3 fire emojis. Everyone liked it. Nobody offered to pay the joining fee. The dream wedding stopped dreaming. The loft evaporated. The caterer booked a tech startup with a beer wall. The DJ took a quinceañera and looked happier in the pictures than he ever did in Kyle's texts. The ceremony moved to Uncle Ray's in Roundville, which is a backyard if you face the string lights and a machine shop if you turn around. They borrowed folding chairs from a church and ran an extension cord from the garage. A buddy from a garage band did the vows with a printout from the internet and a voice he uses when he wants to sound older than his debts. Mark stood where the father stands and did not sway. Monica wore a dress she could return if she didn't spill anything. They twined plastic ivy around a trellis and waited for sunset to forgive. I wasn't invited. That made sense. You don't invite the man who turned on the lights for years to watch you pretend you've never lived in the dark. Mark sent me one photo anyway. Kyle under the maple, eyes shiny in a way that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with gravity. "Went fine," he wrote. "Burgers after. No drama." I typed, "Good," and put the phone down. The next morning, I logged into the lender portal and saw the mortgage flagged, paid in full, disbursement pending. The phrase looked like a person getting up after a long nap. I printed the payoff letter on the Airstream's cheap little printer and folded it once for a folder I labeled with a date. Men like me build our own museums. We put the exhibits in order. We keep the lights on. Then, when the guests point and laugh, we lock the doors and take the keys and go. When the machine collapsed, it didn't take me with it. It revealed what I'd been supporting. And once you see the scaffolding, you stop mistaking it for sky. Closing day was a Tuesday. Title office off South Congress with a coffee machine that makes the whole waiting area smell like confidence. Lydia was already there, tidy as a ledger, a folder the color of banker's blue in her hand. The buyers arrived with their toddler in a dinosaur backpack and the kind of tired you get from working and still hoping. We signed a stack tall enough to stop a kitchen chair from wobbling. I initialed boxes that confirmed the dishwasher that sticks in damp weather and the gate latch that needs a shoulder if the wind's against you. The wire transfer screen blinked approved, and a woman behind glass said, "Congratulations," like it was a birthday. It felt more like a parole. I drove by the house out of habit, not longing. The curb looked cleaner without my truck there, the live oak tossing its slow confetti of pollen onto a future that didn't ask me first. Through the front window, I saw the new dad kneel on the pecan floor and show his kid how to line up toy cars on the seam between boards. It's a good seam, straight as I could make it with the tools I had. I didn't wave. That was his celebration, not mine. I went back to the coast. The Airstream holds you to your own size. Every item has to justify its air. I kept only what passed the test: clothes that worked, a coffee mug that didn't lie about being the world's best anything, a tool roll, the title to the truck, the photo of my father under the hood of a Ford the year I learned the names of wrenches. I hung the payoff letter in the tiny wardrobe like a medal only I had to see. On Thursday, Monica texted, "Forwarded you a PDF from HR. Cobra options confusing." I read the PDF on my phone while the Airstream AC chased off another noon. The math wasn't kind. It rarely is outside of commercials. I typed back, "Pick the high deductible with HSA. Contribute $50 paycheck. When you schedule dental, ask for cash price before they run insurance. It's lower." She replied, "Okay, thank you." No emojis. No baited hooks. Good. Kyle wrote after dark, "I need my toolbox." I wrote, "It's in the garage corner. Ask Mark for the key. Saturday after 9. He followed with, "You made Mom cry," like a subpoena. I typed and deleted 3 times, then sent, "She chose a room where I was a joke. I chose a door." He wrote, "You're not my dad." I let the text sit, bright as a flare, then dim as a memory. Gravity doesn't argue with falling objects. It does its job. 2 days later, I met Mark on the sidewalk outside the old house because Lydia asked me not to set foot on property once we closed. Boundaries work both directions. He showed up on time with a rented trailer and a roll of moving blankets that still smelled like plastic. He shook my hand. His sober was the kind with edges. "I'll keep it civil," he said. "I'm here to do a thing and leave." I said, "Good." We stood there like men comparing scars without showing them. Kyle arrived late, a hoodie in August, jaw hard with borrowed anger. He started with heat. "You don't get to." And Mark surprised us both by lifting a palm and looking at his son the way a man looks at a sump pump he's repaired 3 times already. "Keys and boxes," Mark said. "We don't get to anything but that." Kyle grumbled, but he moved. I handed him his toolbox and the birth certificate and the manila folder with the car's title and maintenance log I kept, because I've never met a machine that thanks you for guessing. He took it all like he was entitled to it. I let him keep his illusions. Reality collects, eventually. Monica came separately, quieter than I've ever seen her in public. She wore a sweatshirt with our old college logo like a version of the past that would accept her back if she showed up dressed right. She didn't make a scene. She asked for kitchen items I'd purchased but didn't need in a camper. Stand mixer, Dutch oven, the stoneware mugs we never agreed on and never threw away. I loaded them into a banker's box and handed it to her. "Thank you," she said, eyes on the flaps. There's a point where pride stops being armor and becomes a vice. You loosen it, or it breaks the bone underneath. We stood under the live oak one last time. The street sounded different already. New dog, different laughter, hope rearranging itself. "I didn't mean to humiliate you," she said, watching the leaves. "Not me." "You didn't," I said. "You located me." She looked at me then, confused. "At the table," I added. "Corner seat. Out of the photo. The thing about being placed is you can stand up." "I thought you liked taking care of things," she said, honest the way people get when the bill is printed and the waitress is walking over. "I do," I said. "I like fixing what respects the effort. I like paying for what honors the cost. I don't like being an appliance." She blinked. We are not taught to hear the difference between a man's yes and his exhaustion. She opened her mouth, shut it, tried again. "Will you come to dinner sometime?" "Not soon. Just sometime." With no audience, no lines. I thought about it. A younger me would have heard a promise. The current me heard a request for a rehearsal of the old script without the laugh track. "Maybe," I said, "after the paperwork catches up to the reality." She nodded. Paper finds us all. In the Airstream, the days found a shape that didn't include critique. Mornings, I walked the hard sand where tire tracks salt into hieroglyphs and pelicans pass like low aircraft that forgot about gravity. I did push-ups on a towel that kept bringing me back to my elbows. I cooked beans and rice and eggs and carried my plate outside because plastic tastes better under sky. I called my mother on Sundays and told her I was fine without explaining fine. I went to the little library near the bait shop and printed forms: change of address, DMV notice, voter registration, a new phone plan with one number and enough data to answer only what mattered. The first Friday after closing, I drove inland to a storage unit and rented a narrow room with a roll-up door and a light that obeyed me. I put the table saw in there, and the planer, and the boxes of hand tools my grandfather would have recognized. Above them, I mounted a clipboard and labeled it with 3 clean words: rules for my name. Rule 1. If I am paying, my name is on the thing. Rule 2. If my name is on the thing, my say is final. Rule 3. If I am not respected, I am not present. Underneath, I taped a photo I printed from my phone, the corner of the dining room table with the ring of Merlot drying into the pecan like a small galaxy no one could own. I wrote, in pen that bleeds a little on thermal paper, a line can be a circle you don't step back into. The hard part wasn't rage. Rage is easy. It tells you what to throw. The hard part was patience, standing still while the other side's panic tried to hook me again. Monica's sister texted a paragraph about family is complicated and we all said things, and ended with, we miss you, which translated to, we miss what you paid for. I told her truth in short sentences. I'm okay. I'm not available. I wish you well. She wrote, cold. I wrote, clear. Work found its way back, as it does when you've built a reputation for finishing what you start. My boss called and asked if I'd take a crew up to San Marcos for a 6-week remodel, where the last guy had measured twice and cut wrong anyway. I said yes. I ran the job with the calm of a man who has outlived a storm. We framed, hung, mudded, sanded, painted, and tuned. I taught a 19-year-old to read a tape and a 30-year-old to speak to customers as if those customers knew the price of their own patience. At lunch, I ate from a cooler and took my boots off in the shade. When men asked why I looked rested, I said, I stopped volunteering for disrespect. They nodded like they understood even if they still lived where their phones told them to. One evening, the wind put a dent in the Airstream's skin that I couldn't pop all the way out. I ran my palm over the shallow crater and left it. A mark that says you stayed through a gust and learned what parts of you will flex and return. On a Sunday, Kyle texted a photo of a roast he'd cooked. It was half gray and honest. Came out okay, he wrote. How do you get the middle to not dry out? I typed back instructions as if I were answering a stranger in a hardware aisle. Salt early, rest after. Don't open the oven to show off. Use a thermometer, not a vibe. He sent a thumbs up and didn't say thanks. That was fine. I wasn't running a gratitude farm. I was offering directions to a man at the map. A week later, Monica called from a new number. I paid the electric, she said, on my card. She sounded like a person reporting a mountain moved. Good, I said. Silence then. The gym said I need a routing number to restart draft. Is that the same as an account number? I explained. She listened. At the end, she said, I'm getting it. The humility wasn't a performance. It landed in my ear like rain on aluminum, loud because it was near. Sometimes I drove into town on Tuesdays because the fish market got a shipment you can't beat by being clever. An older man there weighed my order and said, You got the look of somebody who finally slept. I said, I changed mattresses. He laughed and threw in a lemon. Nights, I wrote down what I learned so I wouldn't fool myself later. Not big ideas. Small invoices. The cost of deactivation fees. The time it takes to unwind a life when you stop believing your love can outrun someone else's entitlement. The way silence collects in corners you used to fill with explanations. The taste of coffee when you don't drink it to brace for impact. Here's what I took away. Generosity without boundary is theater. You can stack chairs, string lights, pay deposits, and call it love. But without respect, it's a set that collapses when you lean on it. My mistake wasn't kindness. My mistake was subsidizing contempt because I wanted a family I could point to and say, "Look, I built that. I did build something. It just wasn't mine. I didn't punish anyone." Punishment requires staying close enough to watch the lesson sink in. I left. I dropped the leash I'd fashioned out of payments and reminders and rides to places where I waited in the car while they performed being adults. I closed the wallet they named me and kept my name. I wrote my rules on a clipboard in a storage unit where no one claps and no one laughs, and the only sound is the click of a light that listens. If there's a moral, it fits on one line I wish I'd read earlier. Love without respect is slavery. If they won't pay attention, they can pay the bill.